Welcome. Welcome to December. Welcome to First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church. Welcome to North Texas. I'm Annie Foerster, minister of the church here in Fort Worth. I'm really excited today because we have some guests here with us. You'll get to see them when they come up for the story time. They've helped to decorate the Christmas tree behind me, and they're getting ready for the holidays. We are in the midst of holidays and holy days celebrations. There are a couple of new holidays being celebrated by Unitarian Universalists and an old one celebrated by the Coven of Unitarian Universalist pagans. I'll say more about them on the 20th when I talk about Christmas. But just to give you a heads up, so you can put them on your calendar or look them up for yourself, we'll start with Chalaka, which is being celebrated this week, beginning yesterday and ending next Sunday. Each day during Chalaka, a chalice is lit and one of our 7 principles is studied. Yule, or solstice, is celebrated on the 21st and will be featured next week when the children participate in their annual service. You can watch it here. And on December 23rd is Festivus for the rest of us, for those who celebrate the secular holiday of Christmas, but not the religious one. This does not diminish any of the traditional celebrations like Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Watch Night, or Christmas, but gives us more opportunity to honor the darkest time of the year and welcome the returning of the light. My topic this morning is stillness, the blessings of silence and inner peace. But before I begin, let us celebrate this morning's worship with music. That was Misha Berestnev, our pianist. He's getting ready for Christmas, too. There is a time to let go of the resistance, the steadfast march to complete the to-do list for parents and activists and for all who love this life, these people, these mountains, this sky. There is a time to rest and to trust the world will go on, filled with partners at the ready, all of us splitting shifts on this project of building and healing, tending and turning. Breath and being require their own practice, their own attention, and the heart needs time for becoming stronger after the shattering, the opening wider, the learning to love more and again. Come into this holy place. Study stillness and joy with me. Know your belovedness like a memory calling out from the center of your being, connecting every little piece of everything to everyone and all of us. Feel here gratitude rising and praise for this chance to begin again this day with hope. Come, let us worship together. Our opening hymn this morning, our song leader is Reneel Baker, is number 344 in the hymnal. The words will be on your screen. Through the ages rings.
Not in name, in flinch-filled power, but in December's coldest hour. The note of hope sustains us all. Our life is made of many things, bright stars, bleak years, and broken rings. Can it be true that through all things there always something sings? The universal song of life, entombed within our deep despair. More pain seems more than we can bear, but days shall pass, and nature knows that deep beneath the winter snow, the rose lies curled and hums its song. For something always sings. This is the message Easter brings. From deep despair and perished things, the green shoot always springs. And something always sings.
Thank you, Reneel and Misha. That's a lovely song. I don't think we've sung it before. I hope Reneel can teach it to us when we come back to church in person. Please join me in our chalice lighting this morning. The word should be printed on your screen. We light our chalice because something always sings, as the song says. And wisdom comes with the ability to be still. Just look and just listen. No more is needed. Being still, looking and listening activates the non-conceptual intelligence within you. Let stillness direct your words and actions. And join me in saying our covenant this morning. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Thank you. Well, as I said, stillness is the topic. Calmness, peace, tranquility, serenity. These are all things associated with this time of year, the time of long nights and brief days. These are the questions I would ask you to consider this morning. What is the significance or benefit of stillness for you? And how do you achieve it if you find it lacking in your life? But for now, let's have a story for all ages. And I invite the guests that are here in the sanctuary to come forward for the story. It's one called The Rebirth of the Sun and will be told by Thomas Earthman. Please join us on the steps.
Good morning, everyone. Circle round, and I'll tell you a story about when the sun was born again. It was the middle of winter, and the sun had grown very old. All year long, the sun had worked very hard, rising and setting, day after day. All year long, the sun had fed everybody on earth, shining and shining, giving energy to the trees and flowers and to the grasses so they could grow and feed the animals and the birds and the insects and the people. All year, the sun's gravity held tight to the spinning ball of the earth and the twirling ball of the moon and the 8 other whirling planets as they traveled around and around and around until the poor son was dizzy watching it all. Now the poor tired son could barely make it up in the morning, and after a very short time needed to sleep again. So the days grew shorter, and the nights grew longer, until the day was so short it was hardly worth getting up for. Night felt sorry for the son. "Come to my arms and rest, child," she said. "After all, I am your mother. You were born of my darkness billions of years ago, and you'll return to me when all things end. Let me cradle you now, as I shelter every galaxy and star in the universe." So Night wrapped her great arms around the sun, and the night was very long indeed. "Why does the dark go on so long?" asked the children all over the earth. "Won't the sun ever come back again?" "The sun is very tired," the old one said. "But maybe, if you children say thank you for all the things the sun does for us, the light may return in the morning." And the children sang songs to the sun, and they thought about all the things the sun gave them. "Thank you for growing the lettuce and the corn and the rice and the wheat," they said. "Thank you for growing the trees of the forest and the seaweed in the oceans and the krill that feeds the whales. Thank you for stirring the air and making the winds that bring the rain." Every time a child said thank you, the sun began to feel a little warmer and a little brighter. Wrapped safely in the arms of night, the sun grew younger and younger. At last, the children had to go to bed. "We will stay up and wait for the sun to rise again," the old one said. "Can't we stay up too?" the children asked. "You can try, but you'll get too sleepy," the old one said. "But you can each light a candle, because all fire is a spark of the sun's fire. Put your candle in a very safe place and let it keep vigil for you as you sleep and dream of sunrise." So the children lit their candles and put them in very safe places, and each flame was a little spark of the sun's fire. And the sun peeped out from behind the arms of night and saw all the little fires and began to feel warmer and brighter and younger still. Early in the morning, the old ones woke the children. Together they climbed a high hill and faced the east, the direction of sunrise. They sang songs to the sun and ran around to keep warm. They waited and waited to see what the dawn would bring. The sky began to turn from black to indigo to blue. Slowly the sky grew light. A golden glow crept over the horizon. Night opened her great arms, and a burst of brightness, the sun appeared, new and strong and shining. For in the long night the sun had rested and grown young from the songs and thanks of the children, young as a brand new baby born out of night once more. Everybody cheered, and the children jumped up and down. "The sun is returned! The sun is reborn!" the people cried, and they danced and sang to celebrate the birth of a new day, and then went home to breakfast.
Thank you, Thomas. That was a lovely story. And you can go back to your chairs now, children. They're going to be here next week, too. They helped us decorate that Christmas tree behind me, and they're going to be part of the service next week. Look for them. But now for my first response to the questions I asked you. Stillness is often associated with this time of year, this particular month, because it does contain the shortest day and the longest night of the year. It is usually a bit more still at night than during the day. When I first thought of stillness, I thought of something that you aren't that familiar with if you're here in Texas, where I am now. We've had one night below freezing this week, and it was over in a matter of hours. But I was born far north of here, and while we were merely shivering this week, it was snowing in the lands above us. There's something about a snowfall, especially one after sundown, that is stillness itself. There's no splashing sound of snowflakes falling like there often is of rain. The snow is absorbed in a quietness that prevails. And unless there is a storm, it merely drifts and settles. And as you watch it, your body slows and almost stands still. You can't take your eyes from the snow. Then something similar takes place inside you. Your breathing slows, your heartbeat does the same. Your body takes only what it needs, and you feel at peace, tranquil, calm. The snow becomes an antidote to what ails you. Of course, when you have to shovel it off the driveway the next morning, all that is gone, almost forgotten. That's the time you make the decision to move to Texas. I found about a dozen synonyms for stillness in the thesaurus and 344 antonyms. What's that all about? I thought the more words there were to describe something, the more important it is to us. But when I thought about it, I realized it was important to understand the different types of non-stillness so we can know how to combat them, because they are more dangerous. They include, for instance, vibrations, disturbance, rage, violence, clamor, struggle, tumult, frenzy, instability, turmoil, and disorder. It's enough to make you wish for snow. My guess is we each have our own physical memory for stillness. What's yours? I wish I had you here with me now so we could share. Maybe next Tuesday evening on Zoom when you join me to discuss the service topic. Here's another one I thought of. I do a variety of fiber art, and each discipline has its own emotional framework. Quilting, for instance, is jubilant, filled with motion and color. There's a sense of power associated with it that feels like spring. You cut things up and you put them back together just as emerging plants recreate your garden. Needlepoint is meditation. Needle in, needle out, drop the yarn. It's a kind of relaxation, but it doesn't quite reach the level of stillness. That belongs to knitting. The two needles never separate from one another. There's little movement, just enough to pull up another loop of yarn. The yarn moves silently over one finger as it feeds into the emerging garment. Knitting is stillness making beauty. There are many more images, personal and precious, for this universal sensation of peace and quiet. For Rebecca Parker, former president of Star King Unitarian Universalist Seminary, it is found in the winter solstice. She wrote this: "Perhaps for a moment, the typewriters will stop clicking, the wheels stop rolling, the computers desist from computing, and a hush will fall over the city. For an instant, in the stillness, the chiming of the celestial spheres will be heard. Stunned to stillness by beauty, we remember who we are and why we are here." I'll pick up from there when we turn to the topic, but first, my generosity report for this week. A large anonymous donation was made to the church this week that will allow us to make up for our spending more money than we've been taking in since the beginning of the pandemic and the closing of in-person services. Our sincere and communal gratitude for this local St. Nicholas, who has allowed us to still our worries and begin our plans for a new and successful year. And gratitude as well for the scientists, anonymous to most of us, who have been working on creating a vaccination against this terrible virus. It appears that we are almost at the point of fighting back. I think a hymn of gratitude is in order. Let's sing number 322, "Thanks Be for These," one we usually do for Thanksgiving, but right now I think it's appropriate.
Thanks be for these life's holy times, moments of grief, days of delight. becomes the quickened breath. We celebrate life's interval. Thanks be for these ennobling arts. Images welcome to our sight. Music caressing ear and heart, inviting us to loftier height. Thanks be for these who question why, who no motives do obey, those who know how to live and die. Comrade, to share this holy way. Thanks be for these we celebrate. Sing and rejoice, our trust declare. Yes, all our faith into our fate. Let's now the destiny we share.
Thank you, Renil. That was beautiful. I love the words of that song. Just beautiful. My first reading is called Nighttime in January by Reverend Bill Neely. It's written for January, but it also fits with December and solstice and stillness, so I think you'll appreciate it. When breath catches in the crisp night air, and sight turns to stars, mind to moon, silence asserts itself, breathing the beauty of night into being. Silence, breathing beauty alive. Each new night, without effort, without planning, turns eyes from task to sky, feet from stride to stillness, thoughts from next to now. Each new night turns endings into beginnings, holds its splendor in the awe of silence, in wordless, voiceless reverence. The ancient night knew each evening, turning the proud to humility, the sure to wondrousness, the clamorous to quiet. The noise of days recedes into a gentle, dark embrace, exhaling into crisp silence, held by night, new and old, embracing beginnings again. So, what are the benefits of stillness? I think I sort of hinted at them with my reading, my comparisons, recollections from my own life. But let's turn to science for some answers here. I draw my knowledge from an article by Carolyn Gregoire titled, "Why Silence is So Good for Your Brain," first printed in the Huffington Post. Silence is a product of stillness, and I think we can draw the same conclusions here. She wrote, "In a loud and distracting world, finding pockets of stillness can benefit your brain and your body. Apparently, quiet can make us feel less stressed, more focused, and more creative." The World Health Organization, in a 2011 report called Noise Pollution, a Modern Plague, according to Gregoire. Add to the ambient noise that surrounds us, the music, TV, radio, news, and podcasts we invite into the air, we are creating adverse effects on our own health. Gregoire goes on to describe 4 ways that stillness benefits us. 1, it relieves stress and tension. 2, it replenishes our mental resources. 3, it lessens the brain's default mode resources. And 4, it regenerates our brain cells. Now let's look at each of these separately. What do each of the following have in common? High blood pressure, heart attacks, impaired hearing, and overall health. You're right if you said noise pollution. One environmental study pointed out that high noise levels in a neonatal intensive care unit led to increased blood pressure and heart rate and interrupted the baby's sleep patterns. But additional studies show just 10 minutes of silence and stillness a day can lower blood pressure significantly and reduce our stress and tension. Well, I could stop right here and feel I've been successful in arguing my case, but there's more. All of this sensory input puts a burden on the prefrontal cortex of the brain. This is the part of the brain involved in decision-making and problem-solving. We become brain fatigued when we encounter too much noise. Now, I mentioned the brain's default mode network. I didn't know what that was and had to look it up, so I'll explain it to you. This is science talk for the kind of thinking we do when we daydream, meditate, think about the future, or just let our minds wander. It's how we tap into our inner stream of thoughts and emotions, memories and ideas. It's where we make meaning out of our experiences. It's a personal well for empathy, creativity, and reflection. We don't want to give up on those, do we? And finally, there is scientific proof from many experiments that show that silence helps our brain cells grow. The need for stillness was built into us, but noise snuck into our way of life the more civilized we became. Well, as I reflected on these scientific findings, I thought about our 7 principles. I mean, what dignity do we have if we have a diminishment of our very thoughts and emotions? And how can we carry out our demands for justice, truth and meaning, right of conscience, peace, and respect for the universe with a brain that is too fatigued to function and a body too stressed to care? But there is something we can do, and I'll return to that in a moment. But for now, the communion of names and milestones. This is the time when we share stories of this congregation, of what's going on in the world. A lot going on in the world to add to our stress, I have to admit. I've not heard any stories from the congregation this week. I have to assume that all is well. So let's just say that we keep the stories that live in one another's lives, in our hearts and in our minds. And let us take a moment to share a moment of silence as we think of things, and I will offer you a guided meditation this morning. It's titled, Let This Be a Place of Silence, and was written by Barbara Stevens. Let this be a place of warm and gentle silence. The silence that soothes, the silence that listens, the silence that speaks. Enjoy your own silence for a moment. Music is a kind of noise that's almost as holy as silence, isn't it? It turns our thoughts into something soothing and makes us feel comfortable inside. Thank you, Misha. Well, to tell you the truth, I'm feeling a little stressed just thinking about the stress that we are under daily. Let's see what we can do about fixing that. Fortunately, the solutions are simple and require only that we follow them, that we find time every day to put stillness back in our lives. And that's the hard part, isn't it? Finding time and remembering to honor ourselves with what we need every day. So let's start with what scientist Serge Ben-Hayan said about stillness. He wrote, "When we hear the word stillness, we immediately think of it as the opposite of movement. But stillness is something quite different altogether. Stillness is an energetic quality of being. Stillness is a choice. It can be felt by living in a state of presence where we remain connected to ourselves and are completely present in our body. In this quality of presence, there is something that stands still, but it is not absent of physical movement. It is the ability to surrender to our inner heart and live from here in all that we do. Our inner heart, and to live from there. Therefore, stillness is not something we have to go in search of, nor is it a journey into escapism or numbness. It is where we come from and what we are innately made of, and thus it is our natural state of being. Then that should make it easier, shouldn't it? But we forget sometimes, too often perhaps, what our natural state of being is. So let me share a poem with you, something more pleasant to listen to perhaps than scientific exhortation, and then one simple fix that comes out of its wisdom. This poem is from one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver. It's titled, "Learning to be Astonished." My work is loving the world. Here the sunflowers, there the hummingbird, equal seekers of sweetness. Here the quickening yeast, there the blue plums, here the clam deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? I'm no longer young and still not half perfect. Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. The phoebe, the delphinium, the sheep in the pasture, and the pasture itself, which is mostly rejoicing since all the ingredients are here, which is gratitude, to be given a mind and a heart, and these body clothes, a mouth with which to give shouts of joy to the moth and the wren, to the sleepy dug-up clam, telling them all over and over how it is that we live forever. Yeah, this is my kind of cure, standing still and learning to be astonished. The scientific article I was quoting from earlier supports this. Gregoire said that walking alone in nature is a marvelous, almost miraculous cure for stress and fatigue. Even as little as 10 minutes a day dedicated to simply letting nature astonish you, you will lessen the stress you experience and all of its ailments and help us become more creative. Think of what doing 20 minutes might do, or half an hour. A very creative writer, Herman Melville, once wrote, "All profound things and emotions are things preceded and attended by silence. They bring us back to default mode, the brain we are meant to use to think deeply and creatively and to care about life." There are other ways to create stillness in our life. Meditation is one that has approval from both the scientific and the spiritual community. And there are many, many ways to meditate. Only some of them require sitting in silence and trying to calm that monkey mind that chatters to us so constantly. One way is to read poetry, and then stop to consider what the words and ideas mean to you. I mean, really think about it. You could do the same with artworks, checking a book out of the library, perhaps, that contains pictures you like, or conversely, ones that make you think. 10 minutes a day again. 20 would be better for you. Perhaps this spring, when Adult Religious Exploration offers classes again, I will ask them if I can do a class on meditation. Would you like that? Would you join me? We could practice together. Let me know. But let's return once more to the science article. Gregoire wrote that scientists who work with the brain have concluded that stillness, silence, can literally grow the brain. A 2013 study on mice published in the journal Brain Structure and Function treated mice with different sounds, ambient noise, white noise, puppy calls, to study their effect. And they used silence on a control group for the same length of time. And they found that those mice with silence grew new brain cells in regions associated with learning, memory, and emotion. Well, let me end this recitation with another poem, this one titled Beneath the Hustle and the Bustle, written by Unitarian Universalist minister Angela Herrera. Beneath the hustle and bustle, beneath the stream of thoughts that clamors and chatters over the landscape of our interior world, beneath our habits of momentum and stirring, there is a stillness, deep and peaceful, the place where creation begins. Who lives there? We know her by many names: truth, love, God, wisdom. We turn our hearts toward her face, toward the mystery, and bring our prayers of awe, of longing, of hope, of exhaustion. She holds us in our grief and anger, in our disappointment, our loneliness, and our rebirth. From her point of view, she sees us, children of the stillness, children of love. She sees our place in the order of things, joined together in the larger story. And she invites us again and again into living, invites us into loving, invites us into being loved. May we be restored to wholeness and blessed with peace. May all those whom we encounter receive this blessing through our being in the world. All right, stop for a moment. Press pause. Press rewind. Go back to the beginning of this poem and listen to it again. And then push pause once more and sit in stillness to ponder it. When you have finished, when you are less stressed, please join us for our closing hymn, number 298, Wake Now My Senses.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the lamp of creation your vow. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend. And striving their hardship to end. Wake now, my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Awake now, my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Thank you, Renil. Thank you, Misha. Renil has to go to work this morning, and so he's going to leave us even before we extinguish our chalice. This chalice has burned as a reminder that even when we're separate, we are in community. That love still goes between us, among us, and around us. And we take this light into our hearts and our minds as we go back into our separate lives. The benediction this morning is from Eckhart Tolle. He said, "True intelligence operates silently. Stillness is where creativity and solutions to problems are found. So may it be in all our lives."